Welcome to this explainer. Have you ever been totally sucked into a story and wondered, you know why? Why do certain stories completely capture our imagination? Well, today we're going to uncover the hidden architecture of drama, exploring how the underlying mechanics of storytelling have captured audiences for literally thousands of years, pulling us into worlds both ancient and modern.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a super quick exercise. I'm going to read a really short piece of dialogue from Edward Bond's play Bingo. What are you writing? Nothing. Not writing? No. Why not? Nothing to say. Now, notice how your brain immediately starts trying to fill in the blanks. You're already making assumptions about who these two are, what their relationship is, and why they're in this weird situation. And that right there is the whole point. Unlike a novel that spells out every single detail for you, a play demands your active participation. When you're reading or watching it, you're constantly forced to gap fill. You have to interpret the text and all that unsaid tension. Like, who are they? Where are they? What's the mood? Are they prisoners trying to sneak a message out? Journalists stuck in a war zone? Or are they just two totally burnt out writers sitting at a bar? That space between the words, that is where the real magic of drama happens. So, here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with the essence of drama, then look at the evolution of theater, dig into Aristotle's elements of drama, take a close look at the tragedy of Oedipus, and finally analyze dramatic plot. All right, part 1, the essence of drama, imitating life. At its absolute core, drama is built on this crucial concept called mimesis. Basically, mimesis is the human impulse to imitate or mirror life. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle famously defined drama as an imitation of an action. And this mimetic impulse is exactly why theater is so magnetic. We literally see ourselves reflected up there on stage. Interestingly, though, later playwrights, like Bertolt Brecht, took this a massive step further. He argued that drama isn't just an imitation, but actually a powerful tool to demonstrate and actively change social and political conditions. Moving right along to part 2, the evolution of theater. From rituals to postmodernism. The journey of theater is honestly a wild ride. It kicked off thousands of years ago in classical Greece with religious choral songs called dithyrambs, honoring the god Dionysus. From there, it shifted into Roman pantomime, where dancers used rhythmic gestures without speaking a single word. Fast forward to the 15th century, and medieval mystery cycles took over, parading morality plays right through towns on these mobile carts. Then, boom, we hit the 1590s. Elizabethan theater becomes this booming commercial enterprise. And finally, that brings us to late 20th century postmodern theater, which intentionally fractures all those older linear narratives just to challenge us as viewers. Now, when we talk about early drama, we are talking about a massive scale. Ancient Greek open-air amphitheaters were carved right into the hillsides and were absolute colossal marvels of architecture, holding up to 20,000 people. And get this, the acoustics were so mind-blowingly precise that if an actor dropped a coin dead center on the stage, someone sitting way up in the very back row could hear it perfectly. Just incredible. But because of the sheer immense size of these venues, actors still had to figure out how to be seen and heard by everyone. Their solution? Highly decorated, super exaggerated masks. These weren't just for show. Their shape physically acted like a megaphone to amplify the actors' voices across the vast space. And those bold painted expressions instantly telegraphed gender, class, and emotion to folks sitting hundreds of feet away. Plus, since plays back then only used 2 or 3 actors, wearing masks meant a single person could do super quick changes between multiple characters. Now, jumping ahead to the Elizabethan era, the vibe of theater had completely transformed. It was no longer just a religious festival. It was a full-blown, professionalized commercial business. Open-air, multi-level venues, like the famous Globe Theater, brought people from every single walk of life together under one roof. The open space right in front of the stage, that's where the groundlings, the everyday working-class folks, stood shoulder to shoulder to catch the action up close, while the wealthier patrons sat up in the covered galleries. Okay, on to part 3, Aristotle's elements of drama, the blueprint. If we really want to understand how dramatic structure works, we have to go back to Aristotle. In the 4th century BCE, he took a really deep dive into the tragedies he'd seen, trying to figure out the exact secret sauce of why they held such immense emotional power over people. He wrote down all his theories in a foundational text called Poetics, and honestly, it's so spot on that writers and critics are still using it today. So in Poetics, Aristotle broke drama down into 6 essential elements, basically arguing that a truly successful play needs a careful balance of all of these. First, you have plot, the conflict and the structure of the story. Then thought, which is the core theme or the message. Character, obviously, the essence of the people portrayed. Rhythm, which controls the pacing, the tempo, and any musical elements. Spectacle, which covers everything visual, sets, costumes, lighting, the whole shebang. And lastly, diction, meaning the specific language choices and how the actors actually deliver the dialogue. Let's see how this works in action with Part 4, The Tragedy of Oedipus, a Site Visit.
Central to Aristotle's idea of a compelling tragic character are two really critical concepts. First up is hamartia. This is a fatal character flaw, or sometimes just a huge, severe error in judgment that ultimately causes a noble hero's downfall. It's their moral Achilles heel. And more often than not, this hamartia is fueled by something called hubris, which Greek culture considered a massive sin. Hubris is just excessive pride, the kind of blinding ego that makes someone totally unwilling to listen to good advice because they actually believe they can outsmart fate or the gods.
So when a character acts on that hubris, it sets off a chain reaction, triggering the plot's major turning points. The first is peripeteia, which is a sudden, whiplash-inducing reversal of fortune where the character's situation flips from totally fine straight into a total disaster. And this reversal is almost always paired with anagnorisis. This is the startling, jaw-dropping moment of discovery. It's that shock when a character finally wakes up and realizes their true identity, or the horrifying reality of what they've done. In a single moment, everything changes. And we can map all of these concepts flawlessly onto Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. Oedipus displays incredible hubris by mocking the blind prophet Tiresias, thinking he can dodge prophecy. His hamartia is his stubborn, relentless hunt for the truth, brushing off every red flag and warning to just stop. This brings us to his peripeteia, the reversal, when the powerful king realizes he is the exact murderer destroying his own city. His anagnorisis hits like a freight train when he figures out he actually killed his own father and married his mother. And watching this whole tragic puzzle click into place, that gives the audience catharsis, a profound cleansing release of all that built up tension, pity, and fear. And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, Analyzing Dramatic Plot, the Modern Structure. Even though postmodern plays love to break the rules, a traditional linear dramatic plot still relies on a highly structured, almost mountain-like sequence. You start at the base with exposition, getting to know the characters and the background. Then you start climbing, building suspense through the rising action, all the way to the peak, the climax, the moment of absolute highest tension. Once that tension breaks, you coast down the falling action until you finally reach the resolution, where all the loose ends get tied up. A brilliant example of this structure in action is Susan Glaspell's one-act play, Trifles. The exposition cleverly sets up the core theme, that men constantly dismiss women's perspectives by having the male characters mock the kitchen space where a murder happened. This builds incredible suspense. While the men are out blindly searching for a grand motive, the two women, Mrs. Hale and Mrs. Peters, are quietly finding the actual evidence hidden in plain sight. The climax drops when Mrs. Peters is agonizingly torn between her legal duty and her profound compassion for the abused wife who committed the crime. In a really defiant resolution, the women choose to silently side with each other and hide the evidence. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to chew on. Thinking about this whole architecture we just laid out, are our tragic heroes like Oedipus truly just helpless victims of unavoidable fate? Or are they actually victims of their own stubborn actions and hubris? And maybe even more importantly, why are we humans so deeply entertained and satisfied by watching their tragic downfalls? Keep that in the back of your mind the next time you sit down to watch a play or a movie. Thanks so much for exploring the blueprints of storytelling with me today.